Have you ever felt completely drained, like you've given everything you've got and there's nothing left? That's exactly where the prophet Elijah found himself. He had just experienced one of the most incredible spiritual victories in history on Mount Carmel. Picture this, a showdown against 450 prophets of Baal. A contest to see whose God would answer by fire. Elijah, standing alone for the God of Israel, watched as divine fire consumed not just his sacrifice, but the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trencher on the altar. It was an undeniable, jaw-dropping display of God's power. The people, once hesitant, fell on their faces, declaring, "The Lord, He is God." But the story doesn't end there. After this monumental event, Elijah tells King Ahab to go eat and drink because a heavy rain is coming, ending a 3.5-year drought. While Ahab heads off, Elijah climbs to the top of Carmel, bows down to the ground, and prays intensely for the promised rain. He sends his servant to look toward the sea not once, not twice, but 7 times. On the 7th try, the servant sees it, a tiny cloud, the size of a man's hand, rising from the sea. For Elijah, that's all the confirmation he needs. He immediately sends a message to King Ahab, "Hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Now, let's set the scene. King Ahab has the royal transportation of the day, a chariot pulled by powerful horses. It's the ancient equivalent of a high-performance sports car. The distance from Mount Carmel to the city of Jezreel, where Ahab's palace was, is about 20 miles. That's a long journey, especially with a massive storm brewing. The sky is growing black with clouds and wind, and a heavy downpour is about to begin. Ahab gets in his chariot and speeds off, trying to beat the storm. Meanwhile, Elijah, who has just been through an emotionally and physically exhausting day, is still on the mountain. He's a man, just like us. You'd think he'd be the last person to attempt a cross-country run. He's probably tired, hungry, and soaked from the impending rain. By all human logic, he should be looking for shelter, not preparing for a marathon. But then, something extraordinary happens. The Bible tells us in 1 Kings chapter 18 verse 46, "Then the hand of the Lord came upon Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran ahead of Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel." Let's break that down. The hand of the Lord came upon Elijah. This wasn't just a second wind or a sudden burst of adrenaline. This was a direct, supernatural infusion of divine strength. God himself empowered his prophet for the journey ahead. Elijah girded up his loins, which means he tucked his long, flowing robes into his belt. This was the ancient way of getting ready for action, for running, for fighting, for work. It's a posture of readiness and determination. And then, he ran. He didn't just jog, he ran. And he didn't just run alongside Ahab's chariot, he ran ahead of it. Imagine the sight. A man on foot, powered by God, outstripping a team of galloping horses pulling the king's chariot. This wasn't a short sprint. This was a long-distance race of about 20 miles, through a developing storm. The thunder is clapping, the rain is pouring down, the path is probably turning to mud, and there's Elijah, flying past the royal convoy. The soldiers, and the king himself must have watched in utter astonishment. This was a miracle just as stunning as the fire from heaven. The man who commanded the skies to open was now defying the limits of human endurance. Why did this happen? Why did God have Elijah run ahead of Ahab? This wasn't just for show. It was a powerful statement. First, it was a final, personal demonstration of God's power to King Ahab. Ahab had just seen God defeat Baal, and now he was seeing God's servant perform a feat of superhuman speed. There could be no doubt in his mind about who was truly in control. It showed that the God who controls the elements also controls the physical abilities of his people. Second, it authenticated Elijah's message. By arriving in Jezreel ahead of the king, Elijah was established not as some wild man from the mountains, but as a true prophet whose words and actions were backed by divine authority. He wasn't just a messenger, he was part of the message itself. His dramatic arrival would have been the talk of the entire city, ensuring that everyone knew what had happened on Mount Carmel and that the drought had ended because of his prayers to the one true God. And third, It shows us something beautiful about God's provision. God doesn't just call us to do great things for Him and then leave us to fend for ourselves. When we are at our weakest, when we feel like we have nothing left to give, that is often when His power is made most perfect. Elijah was spent, but God wasn't. God gave him the super speed he needed to complete the mission. God provided the physical strength to match the spiritual victory. This story is a fantastic reminder for us today. We all face our own journeys to Jezreel. These are the tasks, the challenges, the long hauls in our lives that seem impossible. We might feel tired, overwhelmed, and completely outmatched. We look at the distance and think, "There's no way I can make it." We see the chariots of our problems, our fears, our deadlines, our struggles speeding along, and we feel like we're being left in the dust. But Elijah's run teaches us to look for the hand of the Lord. When we are aligned with God's will and serving His purpose, He will provide the strength we need to not just endure, but to overcome. It might not be literal super speed, but it could be supernatural patience with our kids, unexpected creativity on a project, renewed emotional strength in a difficult relationship, or the simple endurance to get through a tough week. When God calls you to a task, He will equip you for it. Just like Elijah, we need to be ready. We need to gird up our loins and to prepare our hearts and minds, remove the things that would trip us up, and fix our eyes on the goal. And then, we need to trust that His hand will be upon us, empowering us to do what we could never do on our own. You might feel like you're running on empty, but with God, your tank is never truly empty. He is the source of limitless strength. So the next time you feel like you can't take another step, remember Elijah. Remember the prophet who, after the greatest victory of his life, was given the power to outrun a king's chariot. The same God who empowered him is with you today, ready to give you the strength you need for your journey. Thanks so much for watching. If this story encouraged you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the incredible power and faithfulness of God. We'll see you in the next video.